Okay, so we've got NAPLAN coming up very, very quickly. So for those of you who are not aware, NAPLAN is the standardized testing that is done in Australia for years 3, years 5, year 7, and year 9. It is going to start from the 12th of March and it will be going until the 24th of March. So depending on the school, there will be tests administered on different days. So the writing task is going to be done on the 12th of March. And the rest of the sections are going to be done based on what the school decides. So if you're not sure what dates they're going to be run, contact your school. They should definitely, they'll definitely know what the dates are now. And for the NAPLAN, you've got a couple of sections. So as I mentioned, the first one was writing. In that writing task, students are going to be asked to either do what we call an imaginative writing or a creative piece of writing where they're given an image, or maybe a sentence or an idea, and they have to write a creative or a narrative based on that particular prompt. Or they could be asked a persuasive piece of writing. So a persuasive piece of writing is one where they have to formulate an opinion for or against a particular topic that is obviously given, and you know, they're looking for certain structural things with both of those. So I might talk a little bit more about that later, but that is what is going to be expected of the writing test. And then from there, we've got the reading comprehension. So students will be given usually about 5 written texts, and then they've got answers or multiple choice. They're going to be obviously asked to do those questions in multiple choice capacity. And then you've got the language convention. So that's going to be your spelling, punctuation, grammar section. And then the final section is going to be numeracy. So English is obviously a pretty big chunk of the actual test itself, really, because English is the basis of most of the subjects. Being able to, even in maths, read a question, understand it, know how to answer it, like that's a core skill. So that's why there's a lot of emphasis on the English side of things, but obviously they've brought some numeracy in there as well, and that is one whole section. So I'm going to take you through those today in a little bit more detail and just show you how you can best prepare your child for this. So if you've got a child over, you know, year 3, you know, this won't be the first time that they've done it, but it's still such a good I think exercise to have students just do some practice like papers, you know, having them be ready for being like doing things under exam conditions, thinking on the spot, putting that time in, focusing on what they're doing, you know, and seeing how they go is like just so valuable. There's also answers available with some of the practice tests that you can do or get them to do. So you can potentially, you know, help mark it for them, or they can mark it for themselves. If you have a student that's in year 3, chances are, and look, even across the board, like schools don't, to varying degrees, schools will talk about this. You know, I know schools that just do not even mention it to students at all, and then they sort of just come to school and have to do it. You know, which, look, I have mixed feelings about. I personally am a big fan of practice makes perfect. And, you know, it's not just about the result that they're going to get. It's about having them go in with a bit of confidence, being able to answer the questions. Like there's a sense of satisfaction and, you know, like confidence that they get out of being able to go in and kind of know what to expect, tackle them, give it their best shot, you know, especially when they're in year 3. Like sometimes they just, you know, I've seen year 3 like they don't even know how to do a multiple choice, like even learning something like the process of elimination, you know, like you may know and be able to rule out 2 of the answers and then pick between the last 2. Okay, then at least you've got a 50-50 chance rather than guessing, you know, 1, or even just the notion of leaving it blank, you know, like if students don't even realize that they should put something down, even if they're not sure, rather than leaving a question blank and having no chance of getting the result, like that's just basic examination technique. Obviously, we want them to know what they're being asked and answer the questions and understand everything. And in an ideal world, it wouldn't be in a testing environment, but like, let's be honest, everyone's getting tested all the time, you know, and I think that students being able to get comfortable in that examination setting, and, you know, building to a point where they've, you know, had a little bit of practice with that and can give it their best shot, really just makes a huge difference. So I'm going to take you through where to go to have a look at what these sections are asking for, and then, you know, actually being able to give your child some of these practices. Obviously, we do this with our students, so we can go through the actual papers, teach them the material content that they don't know, especially as it gets a little bit harder in the older years. But let's hop over here and have have a look. So the first one I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you firstly the public demonstration site. So this one, just in terms of getting some familiarity with what the tests actually look like for the students. So what you're going to go down here is pick the one that is relevant for your child. We're going to go into reading. We're going to use a standard test, and they're just telling you, and this is good for students to know, they're going to get you to put like a particular code, next, and just, yeah, to reiterate, all of these are online now outside of the written test. Yes, we're going to go in as a test student. And then, you know, we've got a really good idea of what this is going to look like. So they've got to read this little passage, then they've got to go and, you know, click what the answer is. So for this one here, why is nom wanted for taking children's lunches? Great. There we go. Done. Okay, so it's giving you an idea. It's obviously not timing you, but it's giving you an idea at least of what it looks like, you know. So I think it's good for them to get, used to that format, especially if it's the first time that they've done it. And, a couple of practice questions don't hurt either. So that's the first one. So obviously you could do that with, all of the different topics that they can ask. So as we said here, reading, conventions, numeracy. Okay, it doesn't have writing in there because that's obviously like a physical test. All right, so the next one I'm going to share with you is the ACARA actual website where they have test papers. So there's not heaps, but, it's definitely a good place to start. So they've got, 4 test papers here from 2012 to 2016. And so then you basically got all of the different sections here. So if we have a look here, we've got, this is the question. So this is an example question that they gave in 2016. So again, give your child a bit of an idea of, what they're going to be asking. This is a prompt for year 3 and 5. So, obviously they've grouped that together. Then the next thing you've got here is the actual writing booklet. I love this too. Really nice spacing of lines. Again, get them used to just writing on this, generally, like with the written tasks, they do look, obviously the more your child can fill up with detail and that, the better. There's a much clearer structure. So they're looking for sort of paragraph structure. Creative writing, there's a little bit more fluidity there in terms of, how many paragraphs they're looking for. It's more about, and I'd probably do a second video in this as well. Always start a creative writing with the actual setting, so that's a really good place. Like start describing the surroundings and that illustrates the character. And I have lots of videos on creative writing, so feel free to go and have a look at some of those if you want to know like what sort of ideas students should be coming up with, etc. But, there's, you sort of want, obviously they know they've got to have a character, there's got to be some sort of a complication, but we're really looking for some descriptive writing. So that's the key thing there. And obviously having some relevance to the actual stimulus that was given. With a persuasive piece of writing, there is a much more specific layout that they're looking for. So what they're basically, the top ones, and just so you know, there are also some practice, like there's some samples. It's pretty interesting what some people are writing in year 3 and 5. Let me tell you, I have been teaching HSC for over 20 years, and there are some very, very clever year 3 and 5 students writing some very, very deep and meaningful, expressive, imaginative, descriptive pieces of writing, creative writing, and also for persuasive writing. But persuasive writing has a much clearer structure. So persuasive writing, we're looking for an introduction where you state your point of view, you introduce your points of argument. Ideally, you want to have 3 paragraphs, so 3 ideas. What I like to do is go have 2 ideas that support your view, maybe 1 idea that potentially contradicts it a little bit, but then come back to the end and have an overall conclusion about what your stance is. So having like a bit of a countered point of view can be helpful, just in terms of showing like a bit more of a depth of knowledge and sophistication. Like, so for example, if you like mobile phones, for example, really typical one is, the whole should kids have more screen time? And you could be like, no, they shouldn't, because they got to be outside playing, and that's really good for their health. And that could be a whole paragraph there. Then it could be something to do with how it, damages your eyes or something. And then there could be a counter argument, which is that, the access to information and education is really beneficial. So then their overall argument might be that kids should have less time or have more limitations on screens if it's for recreational activities, or if it's for fun if you're a bit younger. However, it can also still be a really good thing to support learning and education. So that could be the overall argument. So that's just a little bit more, adds a little bit more depth than just going everything's good or it's really good or it's really bad. That's obviously a little bit more basic, but yeah, look, as long as they've got like a good couple of points of view, a paragraph supporting, a bit of supporting evidence, and then a conclusion, summing it all up, then, you know, then you're in a good spot. So in terms of looking at the actual practice, the sample answers, now you've got your answers here in terms of the multiple choice. So that's pretty straightforward. You can just do that marking at the end. I should come back to where they put those sample responses. They're definitely there because I've read through a bunch of them. I'll pop that in the actual description. So yeah, if you want to have a look at some sample ones, you know, just to see what people are writing, you know, and they also give you, it's really good what they do because they give you a whole range of different samples. So they give you like really basic samples and then they show you the marking scheme. So you can sort of see where the marks are assigned or awarded up until like the top band. So they've got a really big, really good scope of what they're looking for and what they're awarding marks for. So that will give you a good idea, and I'll pop that link in as well. All right, so that sort of gives you an idea. You can do those, like have your child do this practice test. There's a good number of them, you know, as we can see, you're going down there, so 4 or 5. And then what you can do is if you know, look, honestly, if they do 5 practice papers, that's pretty good on all of them. I think that's a decent amount. See how they're going. If they're really into it, they want to keep going, then there are other places to get more resources. So obviously things like Excel books and that. I personally don't mind Twinkle. So if you go on here, so this is the twinkle.com.au, they've got heaps of resources. So there's, you know, so yeah, I didn't mention this, but yeah, sometimes there is a non-calculator section in year 7. So that's an additional test they bring into year 7 and 9. So what you can do is if you know, depending on what year group. So I'm going to NAPLAN practice test year 5, comprehension. Oh, sorry, let me change my screen over here. Here we go, there's the Twinkle. All right, so we've got that one there. And there we go, right? So you can click on that one. I also quite like this because again, it's sort of on the computer, which is more of what they have to do. So, you know, if we go Google Slides, make a copy. Okay, that one's as a PowerPoint, but some of them do come up as an actual, like, you know, it'll give you something that you can do. Anyway, whatever, you can see it's an example test. There's plenty of different variations. So let me just share this one here that they've now moved over to. Oh, okay, it's not actually showing. Okay, but anyway, you click on it and it takes you over to an actual sample test that you can do. So hopefully that gives you something in terms of how to prepare your child, you know, what to expect, find out the dates again. So at least they can go in knowing they're going to have the test that particular day. And, you know, there's always been a lot of conversation about testing and should we be testing and what value is it? Look, I personally, from preparing students for over 20 years to sit tests and even with my own child, like I think it's really beneficial that given that this is the system we've got, is it the perfect thing? Not necessarily, but at the end of the day, this is what students are going to be doing. So the more they can have that practice and that confidence in those testing conditions, the better they're going to go. And I also think that sitting tests and preparing is not just about the mark that you get. It's about, again, I said this before, the confidence and, you know, that ability to sit down and focus on something and work on it and improve on it and practice it. Like those are the skills that, you know, I think are really beneficial, not necessarily just the testing itself. But those other skills are so important, like even just in seeing, you know, students that have never sat a test start actually doing that practice and seeing how far they can come in that, you know, the confidence and the, you know, the knowledge and that, you know, it highlights the parts that they need a bit more help with. And I think that's actually that is really valuable. Again, it's not about whether they got something right or wrong. It's about highlighting what they are struggling with so that we can actually show them and teach them and fill those gaps. And I don't see how that's not going to really help and support students in their academic journey. So hopefully that's helpful for you. If you do have any questions, please feel free to write them below. I'd be happy to answer them. And look, like I said, doing these tests and getting ready for them outside of supporting students learning, they are going to be doing a lot of tests in high school. So starting to get that practice in the younger years, I think, definitely doesn't go astray. We don't need to put a lot of pressure on it, but it is good to just at least go in with some knowledge and confidence for them on how to get this done. So yeah, any questions, let me know. Hopefully that helps. And I'll pop all of the links that I've shown you into the description as well.